Hey guys, Joe from Joe's Shop. Today I thought we would talk about bandsaws. And what does it take to align one properly? Let's have a look. Now, I've taken the liberty of removing the top and bottom cover, both guards, the throat plate, and the pin that divides the table and keeps the table itself level. Okay? Next, let's go over and have a look at the bandsaw. Okay, first things first, let's get that blade off. So from behind your saw, you're going to have a knob that lowers the tension on your blade. And you're going to want to take that tension off of the blade. Don't twist the thumb screw that kicks this wheel in and out. Just let the blade come down so it's loose. If you have a question, seek your manual. Once you have your blade loose, the way I take them off is with a little reverse, just like that, and it pops off. Make sure you're holding onto it good. Then you just feed the bottom out and come around through your slot. Now, an easy way to do these, take one in your top hand with your thumb, take the other one like this, and twist gently, carefully. There's your blade ready to go. Put a twist tie on it right away so it can't go anywhere. These things are like a virtual time bomb if you don't. So we'll do that right away. Now what you're going to want to do is clean your top and bottom roller so that all the grit and crap is off of here. I'll show you how I do that in just a second. Now, of course, you'll want to unplug your saw before you do all this, but that goes unsaid. Of course, mine's plugged in. Kidding. What you're going to want to do now is just hold your brush up against and spin the wheel. Try not to bang it all around like that. Just keep it spinning. Put a little bit of load on it. This is a copper brush. You can try nylon. You can try whatever you have that works, but you do not want to abrade this rubberized strap that's over it. You just want to clean the grit off of it. So very carefully and gently. Otherwise, you're going to cost yourself some money. But you want to have it until it's all the crap is off of here where it feels smooth. Doesn't have to look 100% clean as much as it has to be smooth. I wouldn't put any chemicals on this rubber wheel. It'll just cause it to crack and dry out on you, which you really don't want. But you just don't want anything that's up in the air. No high spots. So let it spin, let your fingers see what its topography is like. That one's clean. Then do your bottom one. So you just, one of these works pretty good. And go the other way. And just see that you can't feel any of that stuff left. Okay, after you're all done cleaning up the actual rubber tire, if you will, that goes around these wheels, then what I would suggest is getting the actual, if you have any big clumps of crud going around the outside here that are going to affect balance when this thing's running fast, just brush it off. Short of that, you're all ready to go for the next step. Then what I would suggest next is loosen up your guides. This one here, and the left side, and the two down here also. Get those so they're not snugged up, so they're just lightly loose. Push them a little left and a little right of center. So we can put on a blade next. Now, to put the blade on, separate your pieces so you see which one's going to be top and bottom. Okay, you can tell this is going to fall away. Move it away from your eyes. Now you have to make sure that your blade, your hook is going downward, obviously, for the next step here. And then you swing it on into your groove. Try not to put any kinks in this thing, it's so important. Come around and balance it on top of your wheel. That's what I like to do anyway. Hold it into your left side. Push it into where these gullets go. And keep following with your hand, pushing it in the track. Once you get to the bottom wheel, hold it on the left side and spin this in the reverse order. Occasionally that will happen. But just stick with it. Hold a little load on it. And push this around into the reverse side. Reverse direction rather, so that the teeth are coming up. That way you're not going to wreck anything like you hear over here as the blade starts to line itself. Now I have light load on this blade. I will tighten the handle in back to give me a little more load. By no means have I put full tension on this blade yet, but I did put some on. Now, I'll show you next. We have to go into a close-up view here as to what's happening next. The next thing I would do is make sure that your blade is not smashed up against the back of your bearing. So slowly put tension on your blade until you feel it's good, or until your little meter says you're at the width of blade you're tensioning for. This is a 3/8 blade. I always tension slightly low, so I'm going to go to 1/4 inch. Is that right to do? I don't know, but I can tell you this, I never break any blades after tensioning slightly low. Okay, next, you're going to want to know if you're left. Well, let's talk about the back first. You need to have the blade so it's slightly off of the bearing. It's not supposed to ever track against the bearing when the machine is running on its own. Okay? You can see it lightly tried, but that's because the blade hadn't been centered yet. You have to go around a few times. A word about doing that. You should always spin the lower wheel, not the top one with your hand, because the top wheel can be tilted and throw you off as to alignment of your blade. So right now, after you've tightened it, spin your lower wheel by hand underneath from the bottom and get it so that it's tracking on its own. If it's not and it falls forward or comes backward, here's why. Okay, now, after you've had your blade tensioned and you do have some load on it, we're going to want to spin it backwards, carefully and slowly, to get it to feed onto the wheels. Once you go around and you feel once or twice, if your blade is still on, that is, it should start to be wanting to be up against a bottom back bearing. If it is not, is because up here, this can be tilted. All right? This thing pushes in and out with the thumb wheel over here. If you tighten it, it kicks this in, which makes your blade go to the back of the wheel. You always want your blade to be centered on your wheel because there's a crest to it. So if it's hanging off the front, it's going to want to come off the thing. And if it's towards the back, it's going to want to shoot back all the time. So you want to keep this in the middle. And very slowly you have to do the adjustments here, tightening and loosening this until you get the blade right in the middle. Okay? And again, try not to spin it from the top. Do it from down below because this bearing floats. The bottom one does not. So you'll always get a fake tracking when you do it on top, but you won't do it on the bottom. Next, after you have some tension on the blade where you feel it's accurate, spin your wheel backwards again some more and see if you're riding on your back bearing. If it's riding literally tight to it as you go around, you're going to have to move your bearing back. Go down to your lower one next. Check it again. Did it stop that now? Is it still rubbing against that back bearing? You want just the tiniest amount of touch before it hits that back bearing. So meanwhile, while it's running at high RPM, it shouldn't be making these bearings even spin, because you're just wearing out the bearing for no reason and causing wear on everything for no reason. Only once you touched your blade to something should these then get loaded upon, either the top one or the bottom one. Okay, so now we have a load on it. We've got it centered on our wheel based on which way we turn this back here, and then we locked it in so it's not moving anymore. We'll try it again, make sure it's working good. Try it a little bit higher speed with your finger in the correct direction this time, and see that everything is okay. If it's running okay, next we got to have our alignment done for left to right. I will show you exactly how that works up close next. Okay, once you're tightened down here and here, put your thumb on the front of the blade and see what you got. You see there's a little bit of walk in there? Just a little. Just that hair. That's what you want. Just like that. And then you have to do the same down below. Okay, and after you have the bottom one done, here's what it should be like then. Let me put my hand way down below the camera, under the table here, and kind of, you see what we have going there? That little micro wobble? That's what you need. And you notice it goes back just a speck before it touches? That's also what you need. Now, let's have a look at the back bearing and how much dimension is behind it. This is what it has without any adjustment whatsoever to the saw. This is exactly what I had before I started this video. That is too far off of that bearing. And the reason why, I found today that this whole assembly was loose on here. And it actually was turned a little bit, and it was jacking the blade at a little bit of an angle between these gullets. So I Loctited this in real tight, and I thought I might as well do a video now because it needs to be realigned, and here we are. That's honest to God. So next you're going to need the bearing to have a little bit of distance here, but you got to be careful. As you make your blade come around, again, use the bottom wheel. I was just using the top. You're going to notice that about where it's welded, it's going to get really close to the bearing. We got to turn it around until we find that spot. There it is. Now we have about 40 thousandths there. I was surprised. Oh, it got pretty tight there too. You see that wobble there? So I'm about right. I mean, you want just a hair before the bearing in your worst part on the blade. And I think that was probably it. I would say to have a 64th, 32nd maybe, is an ideal dimension. So this one's a hair too much, just a hair. This should be brought forward just a speck. And then you're going to want to do the same thing with your one down below, because obviously there are two bearings. Well, most of them have two bearings, not all. And after you're done with that, you should be pretty well set up. You guys let me know what you think. Did I tell everything the way it should be? Or do you have something I should have added? Let me know what's going on. We'll talk to you guys. Take care.